welcome back to 305 Insights. I'm your host, Alan Somerton, and today we're diving into an even darker turn for the Florida State Seminoles as they fall to the SMU Mustangs 42-16. The Mustangs moved to 4-1, and if you flip that record, that's where FSU stands, 1-4. And we'll do a little dive into the stats and then just have a larger discussion about this team. DJ went 12 of 30 for 222 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Brock Glenn came in at the end because at a certain point in the game, DJ looked like he dislocated his left pinky. And Brock came in, proceeded to go over 4. Lawrence Toafili had another solid game, 15 carries, 67 yards. Cam Davis, 2 carries, 6 yards. Sam Singleton Jr., 3 for 5. And DJ for 5 for -5. Receiving-wise, again, plagued by drops. Kyle Morlock had 1 catch for 20, and that should be the last catch he has as an FSU Seminole. Because A, he's a senior, and B, he committed another drop that led to an interception, and it's just too many at this point. You cannot have a tight end playing in this system that does not block well and does not catch. This is a run-based offense, primarily based on establishing the run to open up explosive plays. If you have a tight end that cannot block, and then his one job is to stretch the field, and he cannot do that, I'm sorry, but Kyle Morlock serves no purpose on this team. And lo and behold, you start playing the young kids. Landon Thomas has the first touchdown catch in I don't know how many games. Well, for sure this whole season. 1 catch, 20 yards, and a touchdown. Their highest rated tight end recruit since Nick O'Leary, which was back in 2011. You have Amari Williams backing him up, and he could play either tight end or defensive end, but it's time to start playing the young kids, especially at tight end. Overall, the defense played okay. You just saw the end of the game pretty much occur when it was 28-16. They forced a 3 and out, and I believe it was Darius Williamson, but it was called on Omar and Cooper. But committed a face mask penalty before the ball was kicked. 15-yard penalty, automatic first down, and the game pretty much ended from there. There was it's just a huge letdown for the defense after what they did, and it just, nothing happened after that. The closest you got again was the 28-16, and there was a 2-yard run to kick off or to finish off that drive, and then the 82-yard reception returns. It's 42-16 with 13 minutes left in the game, so there's nothing really, again, the defense could do there after they did their job. And I know this defense has gotten a lot of flack. They do allow a lot of explosive plays. SMU had 458 total yards, 254 passing, 204 rushing. But honestly, folks, you lose a turnover battle 3-1. You lose a time of possession battle 35-41 to 24 minutes and 19 seconds. This offense is anemic. Another performance under 300 yards, total 285 yards for this offense. They haven't gotten over 300 yards this whole season. And that dates back also to when Jordan Travis was injured. They didn't get over 300 yards. So it's been quite a long stretch where you have the Florida game, the Louisville game, the Georgia game, And now these 5 games, so it's 8 games, I believe. My math is correct there. That you've had less than 300 yards of total offense. How do you expect this defense that already is struggling this year? I'm not excusing what has been happening on this defense. But how do you expect them to perform on a consistent basis where this offense consistently does not consume time, does not have any explosive plays, does not sustain drives for an extended period of time? And if they do sustain drives, you see the result at the end where they have 3rd and goal from the 2. And Mike Norvell calls for a QB sneak, and Lawrence Toafili whiffs on a block. So they decide to run the same play again, and he gets stopped. Take the points. This is towards the end of the first half. Take the points. You get the ball back to start off the second half. You could have just went into the locker room and it would have been 14-10. It's just tough watching this team because, again, there's a lot of talent here, but it is becoming more and more apparent that the coaching staff isn't up to par in terms of being able to put these kids in a position to succeed. And with the way this season's shaping up, I am honestly, and in the era of hot takes and what you can do to make yourself stand out with your opinions on sports in general, I'm prefacing what I'm about to say with all that by saying this isn't me trying to do a hot take. This isn't me trying to, do something different. This is coming from a place of passion and love for this team. I've said it multiple times on this podcast. I never attended Florida State. I graduated from UM. My brain belongs to Miami, but my heart belongs to Florida State. I grew up as a kid. My dad graduated from there. I grew up as a kid watching this team every Saturday. I'm 34 years old. As a kid growing up, that they were in the midst of their, 14 straight years in the top 5. And the reason why it's 14 straight years is actually 13 straight years in the top 4. It was the 14th year they finished number 5. I went through the lost decade with Jeff Bowden as the offensive coordinator. I went through the end of Jimbo Fisher's tenure. And I suffered through the Willie Taggart era. It's not a rebuild, it's a reload, folks. I think we all remember that and how often I reference that on this podcast and other shows that I do with Miguel and Eric. I've seen 3-6 from Norvell, 5-7, 10-3, 13-1. 13-0, 13-1. In my lifetime, this is the worst Florida State football team I have seen. Let me repeat that. This is the worst Florida State football team I have ever seen in my lifetime. That doesn't constitute just the talent, the players on here, what they should be, what they are. This is all-encompassing of all the factors involved. The kids, the transfers, the recruits, the effort on the field, the coaching staff, all of it. Mike Norvell is going to have a lot of soul searching to do every week this season. And there's only so many times you can take the blame. You say it falls on me. We got to prepare him better. We got to coach him better. All that stuff. That message begins to lose its luster, its meaning, when you keep on making the choices that you make. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The most concerning part about this coaching staff was the fact that they were going 23-4 in 2 seasons and they could not close recruits. You could not close the KJ Boldens. You could not close, I know this is previous to the 10-3 stuff, but you couldn't close Travis Hunter, Kaderick Falk. You're losing top tier recruits every year. Difference makers. Travis Hunter is arguably the best player in college football. KJ Bolden is graded out as one of the highest safeties in college football. Kaderick Falk would be massively needed in this defensive line right now because of the lack of recruiting depth. You have transfer depth, but you don't have homegrown recruiting depth. The biggest mistake that Norvell has made, and it has reared its ugly head this year when everyone least expected it, is the retention of certain members of this coaching staff. On one hand, his fierce loyalty led him to getting extensions from numerous coaches on this staff. On the other, it should have been viewed as an opportunity when you go 13-0 and you have basically hit your max, your peak. That is where you pivot and you get better coaches in here. We're going to start off with Alex Atkins, who has been one of the better recruiters on this staff, if not the best on the offensive side. He is the offensive line coach, and he is the offensive coordinator, although Mike Norvell pretty much calls all the plays. I was really high on Atkins' ability to recruit, but at this point, what do we have to look at on the offensive line that's his? You had, and we reviewed this a few weeks ago, I believe. You see all the recruits from, was it the 2022 class with Julian Aramama and a few of the other guys, and Julian's the only one left on the team, and he's not even on the 2-deep roster. And there was 3 tackles in that recruiting class that were rated 4 stars and above. Where is the fruits of your labor? Darius Washington was, I believe, a Willie Taggart recruit, which is insane that we still have one of those on the team. Jeremiah Byers, transfer. TJ Ferguson, transfer. Richie Leonard, transfer. What? If you're recruiting this well, where's the development? And that's the issue, the development. And if you want to not focus on that, then you have the offensive coordinator title. Whether you call the plays or not, the title is next to your name. And like I've said, there's been a stretch every single game this year, less than 300 yards. And I know you weren't coaching in 3 of them. So let's just say 5 games total, including the last year's games, where the offense has less than 300 yards of offensive output total. That play call on the 2-yard line, those back-to-back play calls, is nothing short of embarrassing. It was angry enough seeing Toafili blow that wide open tackle. I'm sorry, the wide open block that he had. But to run it again? You have Lawrence Toafili in the backfield. You have, I don't know if Cam Davis was injured or not because he didn't really see much playing time, but you have, Sam Singleton. You have Kazia Holmes, who didn't touch the ball. Again, maybe he was injured or something. I'm missing something. I know Roy Dell's out for an extended period of time. You have a plethora of running backs, talented running backs. And I know in the beginning of the season, in the outlook, we were talking about, DJU being used for those fourth and short situations. I mean, he's clearly injured. His mobility is shot. He's been wearing a knee brace for the first few weeks of the season. He doesn't wear it anymore, but he has no explosiveness. He's just a lumbering body trying to run downhill. You have that fourth and short play where they had to burn a timeout, and you just saw Norvell looking at his team wondering, what's going on? Like, we know what play we're running, and yet we can't figure out a way to hike the ball and just push forward, doing the quote-unquote tush push. Come on, man. It's a joke. It's embarrassing. Why have we even gotten to the defensive side of the ball? I mean, how many times are we going to see drop passes on this offensive side? It's not all on DJ. Let's not get that twisted in any fashion. It's not just DJ that's the issue. Again, Kyle Morlock shouldn't see the field. It should be all the young kids right now. Keep Ja'Kai Douglas on there because he's the most consistent performer on this wide receiving squad. After the Clemson game, folks, so you start DJ. I know they released the depth chart as I'm recording this because I have to give myself some time not to record this instantly. DJ is listed as a co-starter with Brock Glenn. Let DJ play the whole game. Clemson's one of the best defenses, if not the best, maybe outside of the UM1, that you'll run into this whole season. Start DJ. Let him try and get his revenge game, but I think we all know how that's going to go. And then start Brock going on after that, because after you face them, I believe the next game is Duke. So you got Duke, then Miami, then North Carolina, Notre Dame, Charleston Southern, Florida. So keep DJ there. I don't mind him starting another game. I really don't at this point. You got Cam Davis and Lawrence Toafili starting. Hakeem Williams or Kentron Portier, Ja'Kai Douglas, Malik Benson, or Jalen Brown. You still have Kyle Morlock starting, or Brian Courtney, or Landon Thomas. I like the or designation because that usually, again, means that they're pretty much going to play. And I think Landon Thomas is going to see a lot more time than Brian Courtney, and I think he's going to see a lot more time than Kyle Morlock. So, yeah. I mean, just a lot of stuff just didn't go well that game. No discipline. You saw a lot of penalties. I believe it was 10 for 79. And just overall, it's about as bad as a game that you can imagine seeing, especially when it was so close. Again, 28-16. But that's all you saw. That's the last bit of life that you saw. You had 5 plays nullified, which would have been an extra 84 yards. You attempted 13 passes or 15 more yards in the game, and you went 4 of 13 of them. That's a great completion percentage. They were 3 of 12 on third down conversions and 0 of 2 on fourth down. They needed an average of 8 yards per third down attempt. That basically means you had 2 plays that you averaged a yard each. You basically made it 2nd and 9 and 3rd and 8 on average. And you know what you gained on those third downs? An average of 1.3 yards. This team is not moving the ball at all. FSU had 3 drives of 70 or more yards, but they averaged just 20 yards gained per drive for the entirety of the game. They had 13 total drives, and they went 3 and out on 4 of them. SMU had 107 yards on interception returns, and they converted those 3 turnovers into 21 points. If you didn't have a turnover in the game, ideally it'd be 21-16, but who knows? The offensive line, once again, massive disappointment. They were virtually just they were just broken all game. SMU had a season-high 14 quarterback hurries. Elijah Roberts himself had 6 hurries against the Seminoles. Although they only had 1 sack, but hey. Our defensive line, Joshua Farmer, played well again. Marvin Jones Jr., he had a sack. But I think Farmer and Blake Nicholson combined for a sack. Farmer on the season so far is 2.5 sacks and 6.5 tackles for loss. He's just really he's been showing you what you expected out of him over the past 3 games. And it's just unfortunately an effort that's not matched by the rest of the team. Grady Kelly recorded his first sack as a Seminole. Sinoe Lohea had a tackle and a half and his first pass breakup. Omar Graham Jr. and KJ Kirkland had pass breakups. Justin Cryer recovered the muffed fumble punt. Azaria Thomas, 6 tackles. Shaheem Brown blocked the field goal. Just tough game, folks. It's getting tougher and tougher to watch this team because you're just seeing these kids not put in a position to succeed. Adam Fuller just runs a predictable defense that it's clear that the offensive side of their opponents know exactly what to do to get chunk plays. And there's no adjustments on Adam Fuller's side. I've said it for quite some time that Fuller's defense is highly dependent on the front 4 getting pressure just by themselves. When you run a 4-2-5, you need to have an effective 4. And right now, the 4 isn't as effective as you want it to be. The 2s aren't as effective as you want them to be. Blake Nicholson has stepped up, but again, he's still a young player. He is a true sophomore. You're seeing energy from the young kids. I know Edwin Joseph got beat on that play, but it was a really good throw. You saw, the plays that he made last week. You saw how Quindarius Jones played last week. You saw some mistakes this week by the back end, especially with Conrad Hussey. But at this point, let the kids take their lumps. It's not just on the offensive side of the ball that you need to start playing the young kids, but on the defensive side as well. DJ Lundy should not be on any passing situation plays at linebacker. And the sooner we get rid of Randy Shannon, the better. I think the only person worth keeping on this defensive staff right now is Patrick Surtain, because of his not only ability to recruit, but the development that you've seen with some of these young players. There's a reason that they're high on a lot of them. And again, I know it's easy to say, like, he recruits well because we've talked about in the past, running back or skill positions are easy to recruit because they're a dime a dozen. Four-star wide receivers, four-star cornerbacks and whatnot. But I do believe he's got the South Florida ties, which you desperately need. But again, I mean, I guess you keep John Papuchis. The special teams is doing really well in terms of the kicking, the punting, and defensive end. You need better recruiting, but it is one of the strengths of this team. Odell Hagens, defensive tackles, you're really missing out on those recruits. And it pains me to say this because Odell's been there for forever, but where's his big recruiting? Where's his development? And again, you can point to, Farmer and Fisk, but, Farmer was injured a lot. I'm sorry, Fisk was injured a lot. And, Farmer's doing well. Fisk is doing well in the NFL, but Fisk was a one-year transfer. There's just not a lot of point right now for Odell Hagens. Again, Randy Shannon, where are the linebackers? Get him out of here. David Johnson, Yak. I mean, they're recruiting well there, but it's FSU. Is it him or is it the brand? Tony Tokars, the quarterback's coach. What are we doing? We've had Jordan Travis and we whiffed on everybody else. AJ Duffy, whiff. Tate Rodmaker, whiff. Is Brock Glenn even going to stay? I mean, just... There's a lot of soul searching that needs to be done in this staff, folks. A lot of decisions need to be made rather quickly. Purdue. Let me repeat that again. Purdue fired Graham Harrell, who was their offensive coordinator, one of their highest paid assistant coaches. They fired him, 4 or 5 games into the season? That's Purdue making hard choices. When's FSU going to start making them? And again, there isn't something that's going to happen in the season that's going to resolve these problems. But again, let's take out a random name from this coaching staff. Let me just pull one out of a hat, and it's Randy Shannon. That was just random, folks. Just talking about Randy Shannon randomly. It's the fate of the hat. That's who the name called. The Sorting Hat picked Randy Shannon. And the reason why is because there's a readily available linebacker coach on this staff, and it's Ernie Sims. You're not going to be able to fire Adam Fuller during the season. You're not going to be able to fire Alex Atkins during the season. You could, because Mike calls all the plays. Mike's going to need to bring in an offensive coordinator because this system, for all its explosiveness that it has in years past, you're clearly showing that it is heavily dependent on a dual threat quarterback, and you're not recruiting those. Brock Glenn isn't dual threat. DJ isn't dual threat. You tried to adjust the system for DJ this year because you thought that you were going to be a power running team. And this is the most concerning part before I end this podcast episode, folks. How off your evaluations are. Now, again, there's a lot of pundits. There's a lot of former coaches. Nick Saban thought this was one of the most talented teams. I will keep on harping on that because that is a man who knows talent. Look at his resume. This team had a lot of people fooled when people watch the practices and see them execute and different things like that. But at the end of the day, Mike Norvell said this was his fastest and his strongest team. You expect it to be a power running team, and you cannot run the ball. You thought that DJ would be able to complete over-the-top passes. You don't take the kitty gloves off for him. You keep him handcuffed in this offense because you don't truly believe in him, or you truly don't believe in this offensive line. There's a lot of things that this coaching staff appears as if they don't trust their players, and it's playing out on the field with a 1-4 record. Whew. This Clemson game is going to be fun, ladies and gentlemen. 14-point underdogs, I believe, two touchdown underdogs. So we'll see how that game goes. Apologies for the background noise. I don't expect it to go well. If they hit the spread in terms of being down by less than 14 points, I will be pleasantly surprised. But once again, I'm going to have to deal with Dabo Swinney destroying this team. That's going to be a fun watch. That's it for this episode, folks. You'll be hearing shortly about UM's escape from Virginia Tech. And definitely, I know I missed out on it last week, but we're definitely going to do a what caught my eye this week in college football. I'm going to try to get that out as soon as possible so I don't run into later in the week and then just not able to do it. So keep on a lookout for those episodes. You know the drill already. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, turn those notifications on so you can get those episodes as soon as they're posted. It's been a long-winded episode, but it seems like these FSU ones are getting longer and longer because of everything that needs to be addressed. And we will continue to do so because, again, that is the passion that I have for this team, whether good or bad. I mean, everybody heard the passion that I had when they were missing out on the playoffs. Everybody heard the passion I had when they were winning games and how exciting it was to watch the teams. And it is not fair to not address the other side of the pendulum when it swings that way. We will not run away from that. Anyways, thanks for stopping by, folks. Thanks for listening. Have a good one. And we'll catch you here next time on 305 Insights.